Welcome to a city they say is going down at a rate of 1 to 3 centimetres annually. But is Bangkok really sinking, or is it just a load of mumbo jumbo? Or could it be a combination of rising sea levels, heavier monsoon seasons, canals blocked off, no longer able to filter away floodwater, or a very poor drainage system? I think I've just answered my own question. Another year, another rainy season here in Bangkok. September and October is when it's at its absolute worst, and I must say today definitely takes some beating. I'm at the level crossing across PhayaThai Road, and there's a train due in 5 minutes. Will they stop the trains running? Or will the trains just go straight over these submerged railway tracks? Let's wait and see. Well, obviously it's no problem at all. I mean, it's only a few inches, isn't it? Think back to 2011, the water was a lot deeper. It was way above knee deep, and the trains just kept on running. Well, it seems they have a problem with one of the barriers. It won't go back up. And there's another train due in a few minutes' time. Well, the noise has stopped, but the barrier remains. Oh, it's gone back down. There's a saying I remember hearing quite a lot as a kid in London. It was, the rain in Spain stays mainly on the plain. And I remember something similar Jim Thompson wrote after 10 pints. It was, the rain in Bangkok doesn't stop the trains. Poetic or what? And by the way, that wasn't the Jim Thompson. I was actually in the pub with James Thompson from Newcastle that night. Well, here we are 1 hour later. The rain has slowed down a bit, and as you can see, the water's drained away. Bangkok is a lot more prepared these days than, say, 20 years ago for flooding, and there's been a huge pipe under construction underneath the city for the last 10 years. So a quick correction there, there's not one pipe being built underneath Bangkok, but 5, as you just saw, and counting, because more are planned in the future. One of those pipes will pass right by here, Prakanong pumping station. In fact, over the years there's been a lot of pipe dreams and ideas announced by the government as to how to crack this flooding problem in the city. Most of these ideas have come to nothing. But I remember this one being announced about 2013, Chula Centenary Park. It opened in 2017, very innovative. It drains rainwater into an underground tank that holds 1 million cubic meters. And this is a great place you can visit on a Sunday afternoon and have a really nice day out, because it's right in the middle of the city. I also got sent pictures of something called Watertropolis, and this is apparently a floating city of the future, supposed to be Bangkok, and I hope I'm not around if this ever happens. I was here at Asok intersection a couple of weeks ago and it started pissing down with rain, so I did what most red-blooded males would do in that situation. I grabbed my camera, got my tissues ready, got really wet and headed straight for Soi Cowboy. Shooting in weather conditions like this, you've got to have a very good umbrella for a start. None of those cheap 7-Eleven jobs. A steady hand is also very important. I'm sure there are many guys with steady hands who go to Soi Cowboy. Lots of tissues because you may well be wiping off the lens every few seconds, especially if it's windy and rainy. But luckily, that night in Soi Cowboy, I got lucky. I was able to walk the whole street without once wiping the lens. There's always been a lot of scary stories about how fast Bangkok is meant to be sinking, particularly in the last 10 years. You've got videos, online articles, magazines, books, websites, news sources, all trying to predict the most horrific scenario possible. One of them even said that Bangkok would be 4 foot underwater within 10 to 15 years, which is pretty hard to believe, but equally horrific all the same. Well, if it's that serious, then why is there still so much investment, development and construction going on all around us in Bangkok if we're meant to be 4 foot under within a couple of decades? I was reading an online discussion forum and there's always conspiracies bubbling around. One of them was that the government have been preparing this city for 20 years already for the inevitable 4 foot under scenario by building the SkyTrain, by the ever expanding network of skywalks going everywhere. And that was why MRT station entrances were built 2 meters above ground level. I also read this one, which was pretty hard to believe actually. The One Bangkok project is being built 3 meters above ground level without the knowledge of the investors and future residents, just in case they pull out. I think that's a load of rubbish, but if you've got any ideas, leave a comment. Yesterday, boat services along the Klong San Seb Canal were suspended for the day after overnight torrential rain meant that boats couldn't go under some of the bridges. This of course had a knock-on effect, as thousands of commuters who rely on this boat service every day couldn't get to and from work. They say Bangkok is the Venice of the East, and just hearing that phrase, the Venice of the East, it conjures up romantic images, but that phrase is definitely not as relevant now than it was, say, 80 to 100 years ago, when there were 5 or 6 times as many canals around Bangkok. But of course, modernisation, infrastructure development and car ownership has meant that many canals were filled in, particularly over the last 40 to 50 years. Add to that groundwater extraction and the sheer weight of continuing construction around here, and it's no wonder that people are saying that this city is sinking at a rate of 1 to 3 centimetres every year. Most of Bangkok's canals flow either directly or indirectly into the Chao Phraya River. There are many water gates along the river to these canals that normally remain closed. When river levels get exceptionally high, as they are at the moment, but they might get higher, some of the gates are open to let off the overflow. I'm at the water gate where the Klong Bang Lampu meets the river, which remains closed, but as you can see, the river levels are very high. If they were to open this gate, it would have serious repercussions upstream, because this canal flows into the Klong San Seb, so it would affect the boat service, of course. It also flows into the Klong Ong Ang Canal, and if you're thinking of taking a canoe out this weekend, then I think you better forget about it. So how come year after year, rainy season after rainy season, the Chao Phraya River still overflows, flooding into the streets of Bangkok and Samut Prakan and Nonthaburi, making thousands of people's lives a misery? Surely by now they would have had some kind of prevention system well in place, right, after all these years? I'm a bit naive asking that, aren't I? Maybe it's not so simple. I read this online the other day and I think it speaks volumes about the whole situation. A water expert at Rangsit University's Centre for Climate Change and Disasters has advised people living in Bangkok and neighbouring provinces to look after themselves as much as possible during the forecasted flooding in September and October, because the authorities concerned do not have a clear plan for water management. There we are. I think the problem is partly to do with all these separate committees in their separate offices mulling over plans. No one wants to put their idea into action, because should it go wrong, it's a huge loss of face. Every year the monsoon seasons in the north inundate the rivers. This has a knock-on effect down through the central plains and into the Chao Phraya River. There are dams, irrigation canals and detention basins that can deal with this, but if it's a particularly heavy rainy season, then at some point these will get full. water would be discharged bit by bit downstream. But in 2011, after one of the worst monsoon seasons in history, things got critical and downstream had to bear the consequences. Well, hopefully you've enjoyed the video and possibly learned a thing or two. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so, like, share and comment. If you want to support me and support the channel, you can buy me a coffee using the link on the screen or down below. There's also links to PayPal and Ko-fi. That just leaves me to say thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you sooner than you think.